The goal of this lecture is to describe the main attacks against the RSA crypto system. So let me recall the RSA crypto system that we have seen in the previous lecture. To generate the key, we first generate two large primes P and Q of the same bit size, K over 2, where K is the security parameter. Then the RSA modulus N is the product of P and Q, and phi of N is P minus 1 times Q minus 1. Then we select a random integer E between 1 and phi of N, which is coprime with phi of N. And then, using the extended Euclidean algorithm, we compute the modular inverse of E, modulo phi of N, to get the private exponent D. The public key is then N and E, and the private key is D. To encrypt a message M between 0 and N minus 1, using the public key N and E, we compute the ciphertext C, which is M to the power of E modulo N. And then, to decrypt, we recover the message M by computing C to the power of D modulo N. So, as we have seen in the previous lecture, textbook RSA encryption is insecure because there is the dictionary attack. And so, to prevent the dictionary attack, we must first apply a probabilistic encoding to the message M. So, to encrypt a message M, we first generate some randomness R, and we apply the encoding, and we compute mu of M and R to the power of E modulo N. And then, to decrypt, we first compute C to D modulo N, and then we check that the encoding is correct. And only in that case, we can output the message M. So this is what happens, for example, in the OAP encoding scheme that we have seen in the previous lecture. So let me describe the main attacks against RSA. So first, we have the mathematical attacks against RSA. So first, we have factoring, of course, and also all the elementary attacks against textbook RSA encryption and signature that we have seen in the previous lecture. And so in this lecture, I will cover the attacks against RSA when we have a low private exponent or a low public exponent. And so this is mainly based on Coppersmith technique. So I will explain in details the Coppersmith technique. And then in the next lecture, I will describe the main attacks against RSA signatures. And then in the next lecture, I will also cover the implementation attacks. So for example, what happens when we implement RSA in practice. So we have timing attacks, the power attacks when you measure the power consumption, and the fault attacks. And then I will also describe the main countermeasures. So let me first describe the low private exponent attack. So to reduce the decryption time, we could try to use a small private exponent D. Because to decrypt, we compute M equals C to D modulo N. So decryption time using the square and multiply algorithm is proportional to the bit size of D. So to generate a small d, actually, instead of first generating the public exponent E and then D, we do the converse. We first generate a small d, and then we compute the exponent E, which will be full size, such that E times D is 1 modulo phi of N. But actually, this is a bad idea because there is first Wiener's attack that can recover D if the private exponent D is less than N to 1/4. So if the size of D is less than 1/4 the size of N, we can recover D very efficiently, and the attack is based on rational reconstruction. So let me explain what is rational reconstruction. So the problem is the following. Given some integers u and e, such that a times u is congruent to b modulo e, we want to recover the two integers a and b, assuming that a and b are small. That is, we have this bound 2 times the absolute value of a times the absolute value of b is less than e. So a and b are much smaller than e, and the sum of the size of a and b is approximately the size of e. So this problem can be easily solved with a modification of the extended Euclidean algorithm. So we know that the extended Euclidean algorithm, given as input two integers u and e, is going to compute a sequence ai and bi such that a sequence of integers such that AI times U is congruent to BI modulo E. And we know that the sequence AI is increasing and the sequence BI is decreasing. So the idea is to stop the algorithm when the absolute value of AI is smaller than big A, and the absolute value of BI is smaller than big B. So for well-chosen upper bounds A and B, where the product of the two upper bounds is such that 2 times A times B is less than E. So in that case, how do we apply the attack against a small d? So let me describe Wiener's attack. So we have that d times e is 1 plus a times phi of n for some integer a, because e times d is congruent to 1 modulo phi of n, where phi of n is p minus 1 times q minus 1 in case of RSA, which is n minus x, where x is actually p plus q minus 1. And so this gives a times n minus x is congruent to 1 modulo e, so modulo the public exponent e. And so we see that this gives us an instance of the rational reconstruction problem, because we can write this as a times n is congruent to u, where u is equal to a times x minus 1. And so we know the modulus n, of course, and we know the public exponent e. So we can apply the rational reconstruction algorithm, so based on the extended Euclidean algorithm. And we see that the bounds are correct, because if the private exponent d is less than n to 1/4, and in that case, we see that the integer a is also going to be approximately n to 1/4, so at least or smaller than n to 1/4. This is because of the first equality, when we have d times e is 1 plus a times phi of n. And so this implies, since u is a times x minus 1, that u will be roughly n to 3/4. And so the bounds are correct, because we see that the product of a times u is roughly equal to n and smaller than e. So we can hope to recover a and u using the rational reconstruction algorithm. And then when we have a and u, we can recover x. And from x, of course, we recover phi of n. And when we know e and phi of n, we recover the private exponent d, simply by computing the modular inverse. So the attack is quite effective. So Wiener's attack recovers the private exponent d when d is less than n to 1/4. And actually, 20 years ago, this was extended by Bonnet and Durfee, and which slightly improved the exponent. So it can recover d in polynomial time if d is less than n to 0.29. And this is based on lattice reduction and Coppersmith technique that I'm going to describe in a few slides. And one open problem is to extend this attack to d less than n to 0.5. And so as a conclusion, this is of course a devastating attack. So the conclusion is that we should always use a full size d. So let me now describe the low public exponent attack, because here, as previously, to reduce the encryption time, we would like to use a small public exponent e, because to encrypt, we compute c equals m to e modulo n. So for example, we can use e equals 3 or e equals 2 to 16 plus 1, which is a prime with a small Hamming weight. But actually, we should be a bit careful. So I'm going to describe Coppersmith's theorem, which is the following. Given an integer n, for which we don't know the factorization, such as an RSA modulus, and let f be a polynomial of degree delta, then given n and f, we can recover efficiently, so in polynomial time, all the roots x0 of f. So all x0s, such that f of x0 is congruent to 0 modulo n. But only the small roots, so if x0 is less than n to 1 over delta. So Coppersmith's technique provides an efficient algorithm to recover the small roots of a polynomial modulo an integer n for which we don't know the factorization. So we have a direct application of this theorem with the partially known message attack against RSA. So assume that when we encrypt our message M, we pad it on the left with a fixed block, capital B, so which is publicly known. So to encrypt a message M, we pad it on the left with a public constant, capital B, and then to encrypt M, we raise this to the power of 3 modulo n to get the ciphertext. And now I'm going to explain that we can recover the message M if the size of the message M that is being encrypted is less than 1/3 the size of the modulus n. So this 1/3 is actually corresponds to the public exponent E. So for this, it's easy. We define the polynomial f of x, which is b times 2 to k. So b times 2 to k corresponds to the shift of the capital B on the left, plus x to cube minus c modulo n. And now we see that by definition, f of m is congruent to 0 modulo n, because when we compute f of m, we get b times 2 to k plus m cube, which is actually the ciphertext c, and so minus c, this gives 0. And now we can directly apply Coppersmith theorem to recover the message M. So we can recover the message M without knowing the private key. So let me explain Coppersmith theorem, because this is actually one of the most important cryptanalytic technique against RSA. So what is this Coppersmith theorem? So we see that in general, if we want to find the roots of a polynomial equation modulo n, when we don't know the factorization of n, this is a difficult problem. So why? Because if we take, for example, f of x equals x squared minus a, then finding the roots of f, which is equivalent to computing a square root of a, we know that this is equivalent to factoring the modulus n. And similarly, if we define the polynomial f as x to e minus a, this is equivalent to inverting RSA. So so we believe that this is a hard problem. However, Coppersmith showed that if we restrict ourselves to the small roots, then this problem is easy to solve. So if we are only interested in computing the small roots of the polynomial f, then we can do this in polynomial time. And we will see that the algorithm is based on the LLL lattice reduction algorithm. So LLL is also a very important algorithm in algorithmic number theory and in cryptanalysis. So I'm also going to describe an overview of this algorithm. So let me say a few words about the bound in Coppersmith theorem. So we see that we can recover all the roots x0 of a polynomial f when the root x0 is less than n to 1 over delta in absolute value. So I'm going to explain why this bound is quite natural. So for this, we can consider the particular case, the easy case, when we take f of x is equal to x to delta minus a. So how do we compute the small roots for this polynomial? So we have seen that previously we cannot expect to compute all roots because this is a difficult problem. But I'm going to show that to compute the small roots for this specific polynomial f, this is straightforward. So we want to solve f of x0 is equal to 0 modulo n when we know that x0 to the power of delta is less than n. This is the bound for x0. And so this gives us x0 to the power of delta is congruent to a modulo n. And we know that x0 to the power of delta is less than n. So this implies that actually when we compute x0 to the power of delta, there is no modular reduction, and the equality is true not only modulo n, but over the integers. And now, of course, we can compute x0 as a to the power of 1 over delta over the integers. So we trivially recover x0. And now we can view Coppersmith theorem as a generalization of this technique to any polynomial f of x modulo n of degree delta, and with the same bound. So I'm going to explain how this works. But first, let me mention all the applications in cryptanalysis. So as I said, this Coppersmith technique finds all the small roots of polynomial equations efficiently. And we will see that this is based on the LLL lattice reduction algorithm. And so it has many applications in cryptanalysis that I'm going to describe in the next slides. So there is this attack that I've already mentioned, the partially known message attack, when the ciphertext is B concatenated with B to the power of 3 modulo n, where this big B is publicly known. There is also Coppersmith short pad attack, which is a bit different. So assume that we have a probabilistic encryption scheme in which we simply concatenate some random to the message. So and assume that the attacker can obtain two encryptions of the same message M. So he obtains C1, which is M concatenated with R1 to the power of 3 modulo n, and C2, which is M concatenated to R2 to the power of 3 modulo n. And so we will see that we can recover, also we can break this scheme, so recover the message M without knowing the private key. And there are also other applications of Coppersmith technique, which are, for example, factoring an RSA modulus n equals p times q when we already know half of the bits of p. So, for example, the higher order bits or the lower order bits. And this was generalized to moduli of the form p2r times q. And in that case, when the exponent r is large enough, we can actually factor n in polynomial time. So to explain Coppersmith technique, I'm going to illustrate the technique with the simplest possible polynomial. So I take f of x, which is x squared plus ax plus b modulo n, so a polynomial of degree 2. So for the coefficient of x squared, I can take 1 because otherwise we can compute the inverse modulo n. And of course, if it is not invertible, then in that case, we can disclose one of the prime factors of n. So for this polynomial, we want to find x0 such that x0 is the root of this polynomial, and it is also a small root. So it is smaller in absolute value than big X, where big X is the bound on the size of the roots that we can expect. So the technique is as follows: we want to find a small linear combination with integer coefficients of three polynomials. So we take the polynomial f of x, and we also consider two polynomials, n times x, and also the constant n. So we write h of x, which is a linear combination of these three polynomials with integer coefficients. So h of x is alpha times f of x plus beta times nx plus gamma times n, where alpha, beta, and gamma are three integers. So for now, I do not specify what are alpha, beta, and gamma. And we see that in any case, since x0 is a root of f modulo n, and since the two polynomials nx and n are multiple of n, we have that h of x0 is also equal to 0 modulo n. So x0 is also a root of h modulo n. And now the observation is the following. If the coefficients of h are small enough, since x0 is small, if h has small coefficients, then h of x0 will also be small. And in that case, if the absolute value of h of x0 is strictly less than n, then since h of x0 is equal to 0 modulo n, then there will be, as previously, no modular reduction. And in that case, the equality will hold over the integers. And in that case, this is very good, because this means that we can recover the root x0 using any root finding algorithm for polynomials. And we know efficient root finding algorithms. So let me explain the techniques in more details. So as I said, we want to generate a polynomial h of x, which will be a linear combination of the polynomials f of x, nx, and n, where we know that f of x is x squared plus ax plus b. This is the polynomial for which we want to compute the small roots. So we obtain that h of x is alpha times x squared and plus alpha times a plus beta times n x plus alpha b plus gamma n. And so, as I explained previously, we want that the absolute value of h of x0 is strictly less than the RSA modulus n. And actually, this is going to be true if for each of the three monomials in H, for each of the three monomials, when they are evaluated at x0, they are strictly less in absolute value than n over 3. So in that case, the sum will be strictly less than n. So we want that alpha times x0 squared is strictly less in absolute value than n over 3, that alpha a plus beta n times x0 is strictly less than n over 3, and we also want that alpha times b plus gamma times n is strictly less than n over 3 in absolute value. And actually, we know that x0 is strictly less than capital X. So this is going to be true if we have the same inequalities with big X. So if b alpha times big X squared is less than n over 3, if alpha a plus beta times n times x is less than n over 3, and for the last one, if alpha times b plus gamma times n is less than n over 3. So we want these three inequalities to hold. And actually, we can write this in vectorial form, because we see that for the first term, alpha times x squared, this corresponds actually to the first component of a vector with three components, where the vector is the linear combination of the three vectors that correspond to each coefficient of f, of nx, and of n. So if we write these three vectors, so the first vector is x squared, ax, and b, the second vector is 0, nx, 0, and the third vector is 0, 0, n, we see that alpha times x squared is the first component of this linear combination of the three vectors. And we see that alpha a plus beta n is the second component of this linear combination of three vectors, because we get alpha times ax plus beta times nx. So this corresponds to the second component. And the last component corresponds to the third component of this linear combination. So alpha times b plus gamma times n. And so if the norm of this linear combination of the three vectors, if the norm is strictly less than n over 3, then for sure each component will be less than n over 3. And so the three inequalities that we want to satisfy are going to be satisfied. So this is the inequality that we want to satisfy. We over this vector. So we want to find these three integers alpha, beta, and gamma, such that the norm of the linear combination of these three vectors with alpha, beta, and gamma will be strictly less than n over 3. And so how are we going to find such integers alpha, beta, and gamma? We are going to use the LLL lattice reduction algorithm. So we proceed as follows. So we want that this linear combination of the three vectors is small. So we are going to put the components of these three vectors in a matrix. So we consider the matrix where we put each vector as the rows of the matrix. So in the first row we have x squared, ax, and b. In the second row we have nx, and in the third row we have n. And now we know that using LLL we can find a vector in this lattice, so a vector which is a linear combination with integer coefficients of these rows, and we know that we can find a short vector, a vector b, where the norm will be less than 2 times the determinant of the lattice to 1/3. And the lattice, it has an upper triangular basis, so the determinant is the product of the diagonal entries. So the determinant is actually n squared times x to 3, And so this inequality implies that we are guaranteed with LLL to find efficiently in polynomial time a vector B where the norm of B is less than 2 times n to 2/3 times x. And so this vector B will be a linear combination of the rows. So it will be a linear combination with integer coefficients of these three vectors, x squared axb, 0 n x 0, and 0 0 n. And so what we want is that the norm of B is less than n to 3. So why? Because in that case, each component of B will be less than n over 3. And this implies that the three previous inequalities that we wanted to satisfy will be satisfied. And so we see that since we know that the norm of B is less than 2 times n to 2/3 times x, it is sufficient to ensure that 2 times n to 2/3 times x is strictly less than n over 3. And so this gives us the bound for the root x0. We know that we will obtain the right inequality if big X is less than n to 1/3 over 6. So in that case, we know that x0 will be a root of the polynomial h, but over the integers, and so we will be able to recover x0 and efficiently. So let me describe the Sage code to show that the algorithm is actually relatively easy to implement. So we get as input the two coefficients a and b of the polynomial, and we get as input also the RSA modulus. So we first compute small n, the number of bits of the modulus. We compute the bound capital X as 2 to n over 3, minus 3 to get some margin. Then we compute the matrix M, which is exactly the same matrix as in the previous slide. And then we can directly apply LLL on this matrix by running the LLL function. And actually, LLL returns not only a single vector, but actually a new basis of the lattice, a basis of short vectors. But here we only want the first vector of the basis. So we extract V of V0. Then we define the ring of polynomials over the integers, and then the polynomial h with small coefficients that we were looking for is built from this first vector of the lattice. So we have to divide by big X to the power of 2 minus I to remove the constant big X. And so eventually we simply compute the roots of the polynomial h, because now these are roots over the integers, so we can apply the roots function. So since we have used the LLL algorithm, so I'm going to recall the main results on LLL reduction. So first, I'm going to explain what is a lattice. So if we have a set of omega vectors with n components, and which are linearly independent, with omega less than n, then the lattice spanned by these vectors is defined as the set of all possible linear combinations of these vectors, but with integer coefficients. So the coefficients alpha I must be integers. And if the lattice is full rank, meaning that omega is equal to n, so the number of vectors that we have is equal to the number of components, then the determinant of the lattice is equal to the absolute value of the determinant of the matrix M that defines these vectors. And so what we know is that the LLL algorithm, when given as input these omega vectors, is going to find in polynomial time a vector B1 such that B1 is actually a small vector of the lattice. So we have that the norm of B1 is less than 2 to omega minus 1 over 4. So this 2 to omega minus 1 is actually called the Hermite factor, times the determinant of the lattice to 1 over omega, so where omega is the dimension of the lattice. So that's why in the previous slide, we got this factor 1/3, because the dimension of our lattice, the dimension of the matrix, was 3. And so we have seen that with the previous technique, we obtained that for a polynomial of degree 2, we could recover all the small roots, so smaller than n to 1/3, divided by some constant 6. But what is important is that we got this bound in 1/3. But actually, we have seen initially that the bound for Coppersmith should be 1/2, because the degree is 2. And the bound is n to 1 over delta, where the delta where delta is actually equal to 2. So we should get n to 1/2. So how can we improve this bound from 1/3 to 1/2? And the technique is actually to work modulo a power of the modulus n. So to work modulo n to L instead of n. And this is going to improve the bound on the root x0. So let me describe an example with L equals 2, that is going to improve a little bit our bound. So we define the polynomial g of x as f of x squared. And then we see that since x0 is a root of f modulo n, then now x0 becomes a root of g, or polynomial g, but this time modulo n squared, because we have squared the polynomial f. So we can compute the coefficients of g, because we know the coefficients of f. So this g is the polynomial of degree 4. And now we are going to look a small linear combination h of x, but this time of 5 polynomials. So of g of x, n times x times f of x, n times f of x, n square x, and n square. And so we see that for these 5 polynomials, x0 is a root, and this time modulo n square. Not only modulo n, but actually modulo n square. So we have seen this for g, and this is also true for n times x times f of x, because here we have multiplied by n. So x0 is the root of f modulo n, but when we multiply by big N, this gives a root modulo n square. And similarly for n square times x and n square. So this time we use the polynomial n square x and n square, because we want that x0 is a root modulo n square. And so when h is a linear combination of these 5 polynomials, then we get that x0 for sure is a root of h, but this time modulo n square. And then as previously, if we manage to find small coefficients for h, then x0 is going to be a root of h over the integers, and then we can recover x0 as previously. So let's do this. So when working modulo n square, so as previously, we are going to write the coefficients of these polynomials in the matrix, and we replace the small x by the big X in the matrix, the constant big X, where big X is the bound on the root x0. So for the first row, this corresponds to the polynomial g of x. So we have x to 4 and the other coefficients of the polynomial. And for the second polynomial is big N times x times f of x. So we have multiplied by the variable x. So this means that the polynomial is shifted. So we have the coefficients x square, x cube, x square, and x, but which are shifted. And so the polynomial is of degree 3 instead of degree 2. And we have also multiplied by n. So we get this second row. And for the third row, we simply have big N times f of x. So here we have simply multiplied by big N. And we have n square x and n square. So for each polynomial, we write the corresponding coefficients when we replace the small x by the big X. And now, using LLL, we know that we can get a polynomial h of x which is a linear combination of these rows. And we know that the norm of the vector, or the norm of the polynomial h of small x times big X. So here this is to replace the small x by the big X. So this norm will be less than 2 times the determinant of the lattice to 1/5. So here this is 1/5 because the matrix has dimension 5. And so as previously, we can compute the determinant by computing the product of the diagonal entries, because the matrix is upper triangular. And so we get this bound that the norm of the vector that we get, of the short vector that we get, is less than 2 times x squared n to 6/5. And now, if big X is less than n to 2/5 divided by 10, then this implies that the norm of the vector will be less than n squared over 5. So this means that each component of this vector then is going to be less than n squared over 5. So with the same technique as previously, we can show that each monomial of this polynomial h, when evaluated at x0, is going to be less than n squared over 5. And so the sum of the 5 monomials in absolute value will be strictly less than n squared. And so this implies that h of x0 is going to be equal to 0 over the integers. And so we can recover x0. And so here we see that we have obtained a slightly improved bound. So because we got n to 2/5 for the bound on x0 instead of n to 1/3. And this is because we have used a matrix of higher dimension. And so more generally, let me describe the algorithm by Coppersmith for finding small roots of a polynomial f, so not necessarily of degree 2. So what we do is we are going to generate many polynomials which also have x0 as a root, and which have x0 as a root not modulo n, not only modulo n, but actually modulo n to l for a certain parameter l. So we define the polynomials qik of x, which are x to I, so this is simply a shift of the polynomial, times n to l minus k, times f, the polynomial f to the power of k, So we do this for some parameter l. So previously we have done this for l equals 1 and l equals 2. And we do this for all the possible shifts of index I between 0 and delta, and for all possible integers k between 0 and l. And so we see that for all these polynomials, x0 is a root of qik of x modulo n to the power of l, because we raise f to the power of k. So this gives us already a root modulo n to k, and then we multiply by the constant n to l minus k. So this gives us a root modulo n to l. So this means that for all polynomials qik, x0 is a root modulo n to l. And since h is a linear combination of these polynomials, then with integer coefficients, then x0 is also a root of h modulo n to l. And then the technique is as previously, if the coefficients of h are small enough, then this root is over the integers, and this can be recovered using any standard root finding algorithm. And so when we compute the bound concretely, by building the matrix, computing the determinant, and computing the bound, we obtain that for large enough L, we can recover all roots x0, which are less than n to 1 over delta for a polynomial f of degree delta. So let me describe another application of Coppersmith technique for breaking RSA, or a variant of RSA. So this is Coppersmith short pad attack. So the attack is as follows. We assume that the message M to be encrypted. To encrypt the message M, we first pad it on the right with some random OR. So we concatenate M and OR, and we raise the result to the power of 3 modulo n. And we assume that the attacker has obtained 2 encryptions of the same message. So he has obtained C1, MR1 to the power of 3, and C2, MR2 to the power of 3 modulo n. So we are going to see that we can recover the message M if R1 and R2 are less than n to 1/9. So this means that the attack works when the relative size of R1 and R2 is 1/9 the size of the modulus. So for this, we define two polynomials, G1 and G2, so in two variables x and y. So G1 is equal to x cubed minus C1. So actually G1 does not depend on y, and G2 is equal to x plus y cubed minus C2. And we see that G1 and G2 have a common root, and this common root is M concatenated with R1, and so for x, and R2 minus R1 for y. And so this root holds modulo n. So why? Because when we concatenate M and R1, so for G1, we obtain M R1 cube minus C1, and by definition, this is 0, because C1 is the encryption of M R1. And when we compute x plus y in G2, the random R1 gets replaced by R2, so we get M R2 cube minus C2. And so by definition, this is also 0, modulo n. So we have these two polynomials G1 and G2 which have a common root. So we can compute the resultant to eliminate the variable x between G1 and G2. And so we obtain a polynomial h, which has the root corresponding to y, so the root delta R2 minus R1, and the degree of h is the square of the degree of G1 and G2, so it's 9. So we obtain this polynomial h of degree 9, which has a small root delta R2 minus R1 modulo n. So this h of y has this small root delta modulo n. So we can apply Coppersmith theorem directly, and we know that we can recover delta, because the size of delta is less than 1/9 the size of the modulus, because of the bound that we have on R1 and R2. And once we know delta, then the rest is easy, because we know that G1 of x and delta, so here we fix the second variable y with delta. We know that that G1 of x and delta and G2 x of delta, these two polynomials in one variable, they are both divisible by x minus m R1. So we compute the GCD of the two polynomials, and we recover m R1. So as a conclusion, we see that we have seen two attacks against RSA based on Coppersmith technique when the public exponent of RSA is small, so for example 3. But we have seen actually that this is not a devastating attack, because the attack only works for specific encryption schemes, actually for a variant of textbook RSA. And actually low public exponent, so when we take E equals 3, is completely secure when we use a provably secure construction. So for example, OAIP that we have used in what we have seen in the previous slide. So the conclusion is it is fine to use low public exponents, but we should be also careful to use only a provably secure encryption scheme, such as OAIP. So now I'm going to describe yet another application of Coppersmith theorem. So we are going to see that we can factor an RSA modulus if we know some of the bits of one of the prime factors. So we assume that we know half of the most significant bits of P. Then we are going to see that we can recover the factorization of n, recover P and Q in polynomial time. So for this, we write P as capital P plus x0, where capital P corresponds to the higher order bits of P, so that we know, and x0 corresponds to the low order bits, so we don't know x0 for now. And x0 is less than the square root of P, because we don't know half of the bits of P. So to recover x0, we consider the following system of two equations, where we have that n is congruent to 0 modulo p, modulo small p, because and so which is equal to capital P plus x0, and we have also that x plus p is congruent to 0 modulo p plus x0, because when we replace the variable x by x0, we get that this is equal to capital P plus x0, so this is congruent to 0 modulo this. And so we see that x0 is actually a small root of both polynomial equations. So because actually it's so the first equation is actually a constant, it's constant big N, but the second equation is a polynomial x plus p, and so x0 is a root modulo capital P plus x0 of this equation. And so we can apply Coppersmith's technique. We are going to compute a linear combination of these two equations plus more equations that are going to generate by shifting the polynomials or by raising the polynomials to some power k. And the only difference with the previous Coppersmith technique is that we don't know the modulus. Previously, the modulus was capital N, so it was a public modulus, but this time it's an unknown modulus, p plus x0. And so, but actually this makes no difference. We can recover x0 using the same technique, and actually the bound on x0 is that x0 should be less than the square root of p. So this means that we have a polynomial time factorization algorithm of an RSA modulus p times q if we know half of the high order bits of p. And actually the same applies if we know the low order bits of p. So let me describe the technique with a simple example. So we are not going to obtain the optimal bound, but at least we are going to be able to factor the modulus n if we know most of the bits of p. So we write p as capital P plus x0, where we know capital P, and x0 is smaller than some bound x that we are going to determine. So as previously, we are going to build the lattice of row vectors, where the vectors correspond are the vectors of coefficients of polynomials. So we have seen that previously that we have two polynomials which have x0 as a root modulo x0 plus p, and these two polynomials are the second row and the third row of the matrix. So these are x plus p and an n. And so for the first row, we simply take a shift of the second of the polynomial f x plus p. So we take x squared plus p times x, and so we write the corresponding coefficient, where as previously we replace the small x by the bound capital X. And as previously, by applying LLL, we can obtain a short vector, which is in the lattice, so a linear combination of the three rows. And this gives us a polynomial h of x, which will be a linear combination of the three corresponding polynomials. So h of x will be alpha times x plus p times x, plus beta times x plus p, plus gamma times n. And as previously, since x0 is a root of these three polynomials, x0 must also be a root of h modulo x0 plus p. And this is mainly because n is congruent to 0 modulo small p. And now, as previously, if the absolute value of h of x0 is less than p plus x0, then this equality must hold over the integers, and we can recover x0, which means that we are recovering the low order bits of p, and so we have recovered the prime factor p. So the analysis is as follows. So we want to determine actually which fraction of the prime integer p we can recover, and so which fraction must be known. And so with LLL, we obtain that the norm of the short vector that we obtain is less than 2 times the determinant of the lattice to 1/3. So this gives us 2 times big X times n to 1/3. And so in that case, we get this polynomial h of x. And so what we know is that the norm of h of x0 will be less than 3 times the norm of the vector b. This is because each component of the vector b that corresponds to, which is actually an upper bound on the evaluation of the monomial at x0, each component is less than the norm of b. And so since h of x0 is the sum of these 3 components, we have that the norm of h of x0 is upper bounded by 3 times the norm of b, which gives us that it is less than 6 times x times n to 1/3. And so what we want is that actually h of x0 is less than p plus x0, which is our prime factor p. And so we know if we have generated p and q such that p and q have exactly k over 2 bits, we know that p is strictly greater than n to than the square root of n over 2. So this means that to ensure that the previous inequality is satisfied, it is sufficient to make sure that this term 6 times x times n to 1/3 is strictly less than n to 1/2 over 2. And so this gives us the bound on x that we are looking for. So x should be less than n to 1/6 over 12. So this means that we can recover the factorization of n if we know at least 2/3 of the higher order bits of p, because actually we can recover 1/3 of the bits of p. And one can show that by using higher dimensional matrices, we can reach the bound 1/2. So this technique was extended 20 years ago by Bonnet, Durfee, and Hogarth-Graham to the factorization of RSA modulus of the form p to r times q. And so they showed, using the same Coppersmith technique, that we can factor in polynomial time a modulus n of the form p to r times q if we already know a fraction 1 over r plus 1 of the bits of p. So previously, in the previous slide, we had r equals 1, so that's why we needed a fraction 1/2 of the bits of p. And more generally, for a modulus of the form p to r times q, we need to know a fraction 1 over r plus 1. But we have an interesting consequence, which is that when r is very big, then this fraction becomes smaller and smaller. And at some point, if we take r equals log p, so the bit size of p, this means that only a constant number of bits of p need to be known. And so this means that exhaustive search is possible. We can exhaustively search this constant number of bits, and the complexity of the algorithm remains polynomial time. So this gives us a new class of integers for which we can compute the factorization in polynomial time, that is integers of the form p to r times q when r is very large. But actually in practice, even for very large r, this is always unpractical compared to the elliptic curve factoring method, which takes sub-exponential time to extract a prime factor p, but which is always faster in practice. So in summary, we have seen that Coppersmith technique is very important in cryptanalysis of variants of RSA. And so we have seen that it is based on the LLL lattice reduction algorithm. So we have seen many applications in breaking RSA. So partially known message attack, when some part of the message is known. We have also seen the Coppersmith shortpad attack, when even when the probabilistic encoding of the message M. We have seen that we can factor an RSA modulus if we know half of the bits of p, and also the extension to moduli of the form p to r times q that can be factored in polynomial time when r is very large. And there is also breaking RSA when the private exponent d is less than n to 0.29, which is a small improvement compared to Wiener's attack. And there are actually other applications. So we can break RSA when computing the RSA decryption with CRT, and when the CRT exponents are small. So this is analogous to the attack when for a small d. There is also the deterministic equivalence between recovering d and factoring n. And there is also an application for security proofs. That is, we obtain a better security proof with tighter bounds for RSA OOP when we have a low public exponent.